Welcome back, everybody, to the Great Property Meets YouTube channel, where we have today one of our previous past expert speakers, Mr. Mike Woods. And we're going to be discussing building regs, in particular, a one-on-one 101 on building regs and everything you need to know. So for the audience, Mike, who are you and why should we listen to you? And what do you know about building regs?
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for that introduction. Well, and hello, everybody. Mike Woods, I'm based in South Wales in Swansea. And I have always been in the construction industry. So back in the 80s, when I left school, I went into college and I studied architecture and building studies. So my first job was a technician in an architect's office. And basically, architecture has been all my career. Now, I'm not a qualified architect. You don't have to be qualified in order to do plans. So I qualified as what we call an architectural technologist, but I still was able to open my own architect's practice because you've really got to have professional indemnity to operate properly. And because I had the necessary qualifications, I would. So in '95, I resigned from my paid job. I'd been working for that previous firm for 7 years. Previous to that, I worked for a local authority. And then, as I say, in September '95, I started Concept Architectural Services. So basically, architecture, architectural services, technical drawing, it's my background and it's what I've been involved in from day one. Yeah.
So what we're saying is you're an expert and you've been an expert in this field. Looking at you, you look similar age to me, probably about 5-6 years post-uni then, is what we're saying. So help me understand this. I mean, building regs, what are they and why are they important when you're doing a project?
Well, back in the day, pre-1985, there was what we call the Building Act, and buildings in the UK didn't have a major structure by way of making sure that buildings were constructed in a proper fashion, constructed using proper materials, and constructed using good building workmanship-like manner. That's the phrase that they use. So the Building Act then became the Building Regulations. The Building Regulations are a set of documents prepared under the umbrella of the Secretary of State. Now, I'm based in Wales, and a couple of years ago, Wales was devolved, as people might know. However, we still have the same building regulations, except that in Wales, and I can't honestly say for sure the differences in Ireland and Scotland, but I'm sure there are little differences. So our government in Wales particular, they've added a few things in which I'll mention as we go along today. But basically, it's a set of approved documents which controls the way that buildings in the UK are constructed, dwellings, offices, and the like. But here's the thing. So I've got, and I recommend people get this. This is what we call the Building Regulations Explained and Illustrated, and it's available on Amazon. It's not cheap, it's 30 odd pounds. But Andrew, you really can't be doing any building work in the UK and not know some of this stuff. Because by leaving it to others, you're relinquishing your responsibility, because it's your building is your responsibility. So yeah, I remember though, the first one that comes to mind, I had the 1991 version of this when it was red, and it was like half the size and half the thickness, but it's really grown into this monster now. So yeah, building regulations, we need to know about it.
Okay, so it's really important that we know the building regs. Now, I've got myself a planning permission on my recent bank purchase. I've got the structural engineer and he's done me some drawings with calculations in. So do I still need building regs? Can I just get on and build this, or do I need to involve anybody else at this point?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Basically, one of the first paragraphs in the building regulation states that where there's a material change to a building, then much of the work becomes, and again, the phrase is relevant, okay? So if there's a material change, there are relevant parts to the building regulations that become notifiable. And this is what they phrase it, notifiable. So for example, there are 16 parts to the building regulations. The first part, A, they're alphabetical, and the first part is part A, structure. So this applies to any structural changes that you're making to your building. Now, exactly like you said, you've taken the liberty of getting your planning permission. You've got a change of use now from its previous use to whatever, your bank, to residential, I'm guessing, or even if it's a shop with flats above. And you want to open up some walls, take the vault out, then that's going to leave a big hole in the middle somewhere, I'm sure. So you need to put things back to hold the upstairs up. So no doubt you've got your engineer to put some beams in. Those beams are designed by a structural engineer. And of course, you could put your faith that that engineer's done his job. However, they need to be verified and checked by the local authority building control section. Now, again, I mentioned building control and local authority, but I'm sure later on we'll touch on the other aspect of that, and there is your private building control. But basically, any works that you're doing need to comply with these 16 parts. Now, not all the works will be relevant to the 16 parts, but you know, we'll mention them later on, but certainly the first one is you're doing some structural alterations, part A, structure, straight in.
So this sounds to me like it's almost an audit on my builder to make sure he's doing things right. I mean, is it somebody who's coming onto site, or is there just a form I fill in to say my builder's name's this, his insurance is that, and can I have my certificate of completion now?
Good point.
How does it work?
What you have to do is maybe now's the time to introduce the sort of private building control. So once upon a time, the only people that provide building services was the local authority. So that was your LBC, local building control. And then some years ago, and times passed, so I wouldn't hate to put a date on it, but some years ago, it was deemed that the building control section needed to be competitive. And private building control officers became. So I'm guessing, you know, local authority building control officers would go, I'll set up my own business, and they then started on their own. So basically, you must notify a relevant body, local authority or private building control, of your intended works. So there's a number of ways in which you can do this. So basically, the main stage, it depends on the size of the project. If you've got a large project and it involves predominantly, and I think this is the trigger really, if you've got the need to notify regs because you've got fire protection issues, so fire escapes and the means of enclosure escape from upper floors, sometimes jobs will require the input of a fire officer. So the way that gets covered properly is you make a plans submission to the local authority. So this is where you submit plans of your proposals. So not your planning approved plans, but more detailed drawings showing the construction and showing the way in which the building is going to be constructed. So that is your full plans application. You make that application to either your local authority or your private building control. And then they then do a plan vetting process. So they read your plans, they understand, they check what you're proposing in terms of pictorial and written specification. And then they will issue you with what's called a conditional approval. There will always be conditions, okay, that I've never had an unconditional approval. They'll always say prior to this needs to be submitted, or this needs to be submitted along the time. Once you've submitted that application, and you've got your ball rolling, you can begin the works within 48 hours. You can start the works, okay? You must tell the local authority or your building control officer, private or other, that I'm starting 9 o'clock Monday morning. And they have an obligation then to come out and inspect the works during the process. So with your plan fee, you pay a fee. So that's your plan deposit fee. And then there'll be tagged onto that your site inspections fees. So that's where your building control officer will then come along and say, right, okay, what are we doing here? Let's have a look, right, okay, and I'll see you now in a couple of weeks' time, whatever, crack on. Now, if you've got a smaller project, you'll notify building control by way of what's called a building notice. And it's simply an A4 sheet of paper, double-sided, and it's who you are as the applicant, what is the address of the works, what is your address as well for communication purposes, brief description of the works, and then you can phone them up and say, these are the works that I'm doing, and what is the fee? And the fees are relevant to the works, okay? So I won't really go into that in too much detail, but you ring them up and they'll give you a fee. It'll be the same with local authority. The fees are exactly the same, local authority and the private guys. Now, when you pay your building notice, it's the full fee. So it's the combined fee if you did your plans and inspections. So it's one fee, you deposit this fee in your application, and then you start within 48 hours. So now you're relying on the building regs officer to come along and ensure that what is being done complies with building regulations. Now, this is important. He's not there to tell you what to do. His job isn't to tell you what to do. His job is to oversee that what you're doing is correct. But he's not your architect, and he's not your building control supervisor. Okay, so that things are being done properly. That's what it's about.
Okay, I think for today, Mike, we'll say goodbye to our audience, and it's been great to have you join us. Any words of wisdom on this subject of Building Regs 101?
No, I think we've covered it, Andrew. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to you for inviting me to do this video with you. I know you've had some excellent other professionals in your series, but if anybody would like to get in touch with me, they can do it. My own website is Mike Woods, Property Expert. And just to expand on that, you know, since my architectural background, I've been investing in property since the late 90s. So I have a property portfolio. So I build my own property portfolio. I'm a developer, and also I mentor people. So if anybody feels that they want to take their business to the next level, then they can either contact myself directly or through you, Andrew, and I'd be more than happy to help people. It's about making sure people know what to do, how to do it best, and avoid making costly mistakes, because thousands can be lost by making mistakes. So if we can get the right information out to the right people, and they know then that they're being shown the right ways, then it works for me, Andrew. So thank you.
Brilliant. Mike, thank you very much. It's goodbye from me, Andrew Roberts, and goodbye from Mike Woods as well.
Thank you very much,
Cheers,
everybody, and thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.